down, please.
Your Highness, Prince Alfred of Liechtenstein, Reverend Jesse Jackson, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow students, I'd like to thank you for attending such an auspicious and honorable occasion for our school. I grew up in Virginia, on the outskirts of my country's capital, Washington, D.C., and completed elementary school there. In American public schools, the 5th and 6th grade social studies classes are devoted to recent American history, although we've only been around for 200 years, and ended with the Civil Rights Movement. It was in this small classroom, filled with 30 other kids from various ethnic backgrounds, when we first heard their names: Harriet Tubman, John Brown, Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and of course, Reverend Jesse Jackson. All leaders of the Civil Rights Movement who marched, fought, called, and demanded for change and equality. Although slavery had been abolished almost a century earlier, segregation between blacks and whites was apparent in everyday life. All across the nation, there were different drinking fountains, separate bathrooms, and segregated schools. King's peaceful message of justice and equality questioned and demanded for the end of racial discrimination. As he so famously said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today." Jesse Jackson is an American hero and leader who inspires millions by his pursuit of freedom for all. Even from a young age, I have been deeply moved by his peaceful quest for freedom and equality that was promised to every American in the Declaration of Independence. In a time of racism and sexism, our founding fathers declared on July 4th, 1776, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Finally, on July 2nd, 1964, a Civil Rights Act was passed. It outlawed racial segregation in schools, public places, and employment. Although this was a huge step forward in their struggle for freedom and justice, there was still a great deal of racial discrimination that went overlooked, and often authorities would look the other way. Even today, in a more modern, liberal, and democratic society, there is still a lot of hatred and violence in the nation that I call my home. In the early 1970s, Reverend Jesse Jackson formed the Rainbow Push organization with its goals and mission to pursue social justice, civil rights, and political activism. Today, Reverend Jackson has graciously accepted to talk to us about their achievements in raising global awareness of social equality. However, the last time I saw Reverend Jackson was on CNN on the television screens downstairs. A small group of students assembled to watch the votes be counted for the historical presidential election last fall. On November 4th, 2008, Barack Hussein Obama was elected to be the 44th president and the first African-American president of the United States. I'm slightly embarrassed to admit that I did cry. Okay, maybe more like weep. But I am proud to say that it did mean that much to me. At such a pivotal point in American history, you can see why I'm so excited to hear Mr. Jackson speak today. Thanks to Reverend Jackson's lifelong dedication to social justice and the ending of racial discrimination, fighting for these basic and innate rights of freedom, I am proud to say that my country has come so far and that finally we can truly call ourselves the United States of America. So without any further delay, it it would be my honor to introduce a true American hero, Mr. Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. Thank you. I'm from Virginia. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, if we're going to have this session together, you cannot sit there quiet. You must put your hands together. Put your hands together. If you love freedom, put your hands together. You want to end war, put your hands together. Now let me hear you scream. It is a joy to share these few moments with you today. We have been in this region now for about a week in Malaysia and now in Thailand as we try to work to build bridges between nations within Southeast Asia, between peoples within this region, and people around our world. We live in a one world community, sometimes separated by language, but connected by message. Whatever the language may be, we want to have access to drinkable water and health care and decent wages, and be free of violence, and have a chance to become educated and develop our minds in our formative years. And so it is a joy to be with you here on this bridge building mission as we tear down walls and build bridges. Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr., would be happy today to be in this room. You look like a little United Nations. Here you are, a multiracial, multicultural, many-language setting, doing an awesome and difficult thing. It is tough to survive apart. It's tough to survive the elements. It's tough to survive. But you have a greater mission than surviving apart. You must now learn to live together. And that really means going from various forms of racial, cultural, political battlegrounds to some kind of shared economic common ground where we all share the resources and live with security, and then on to moral higher ground. There's room in this one big tent for all of us. There are some basic lessons I want to share with you in this very short period of time. One is that life is full of choices and consequences. Say life. Repeat, life is full of choices and consequences. I must live the consequence of the choice I make. Therefore, I must not self-degrade. I must not self-destruct. I must not do violence to others, lest I invite violence unto myself. We choose to live together as brothers and sisters and not die apart as fools. Red and yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in the Creator's sight. Everybody is somebody. Everybody is somebody. The only justification for looking down on someone, the only justification for looking down on someone is that you're going to stop and pick them up. Put your hands together. Put your hands together. It is easier to die than to live. When people surrender, they just simply die. They withdraw their efforts, withdraw their spirit. And some commit quick and others long-term suicide. They withdraw. They refuse to fight back. They refuse to make life better. It is easier to die than to live. It is easier to fight than to think. Easier to use your fists than your mind. Easier to use missiles than your mind. It's easier to stop and give up than to struggle. It's easier to tear down than to build up. Easier to hate and be indifferent. All you have to do is be ignorant and be afraid. Say, it is easier to hate and be afraid. Easier to hate, be afraid, and indifference than to have courage and love and live together. Our mission is to live together, tear down walls, and build bridges. You are global leaders. An overused statement is that you are our future. But you are not just our future. You are our right now. You're not just our tomorrow. You are our today. But you do affect the world now. The clothes you choose to wear affects business now. But you choose a route of violence and drugs, a hope and nonviolence determines how the world operates now. But you choose to say yes to peace and no to war affects us right now. Your capacity to embrace people who has a religion different than your own affects our right now. You must have in this new world global consciousness because you have global technology. And you must not allow the machine to outrun your mind and your vision and your hope. There is a biblical story in the Christian religious tradition. John was put on the Isle of Patmos. He was pulled out in political oppression and sent there to die on this island. It was punishment. It was persecution. While on this island, left there to die, he could have given up easily. He could have said, I have no one to talk with. I have no telephone. I can't text message. There is no network communication. I'm put out here to die. Even in that disastrous, deplorable, isolated, meant to die situation, he had a vision. He said, I see a new heaven and a new earth, and the old one has passed away. He was able to dream beyond his predicament. And that's the beauty that we have as dreamers, whether you are poor and without resources,